Let's record. Okay, we're now recording. I do like recording. It does help. I'm going to start paying royalties on that. It is my pleasure to welcome yet another esteemed composer to this grand design that I've been given. Mr. Gibson, welcome.
Hello, thank you very much. The pleasure's all mine.
Right, it's a lovely thing to interview yet another illustrious Salvation Army composer. But I'd like to know, like I do always, is what's your musical background? Do you come from a musical family?
Yeah, I do. I grew up in a musical family and a Salvation Army family. My dad taught me to play the piano from being very young, and then my parents sent me to piano lessons when I was about probably 7 or 8 years old to start doing it properly, or probably because I didn't listen as much when my dad told me. I think they wanted an external voice to keep me right. But yes, so I did come from a musical family. My dad played in the band. It was always good to kind of grow up in that kind of environment. That my parents were interested in music, and there was music in the house all the time. There was music on in the car all the time. Lots of different types of music as well, and it wasn't just limited to army music. A whole range of different types of music. But yeah, I remember sitting next to my dad in the band when I was very small, and watching him and what he was doing, sitting next to my mum in the songsters. I guess just all of that adding up to I couldn't be trusted on my own in the hall. I don't know if that's what that means, but yeah, a good musical upbringing. Enjoyed it.
Yeah, brilliant. So when did you sort of find out that making music outside of the family home that other people could enjoy and play and read was something that you could do?
I guess at school, my parents encouraged me to be part of as many, different musical activities as possible. Any activities really, but particularly music, because I had a real interest there. And I guess that I kind of became quite a close ally, I would say, of the music teacher in the school as I was growing up. And got involved in choirs and playing for choirs and all jazz bands and a school orchestra, all the different kind of range of things that were available through school. And that was a real good opportunity to learn about how music can kind of exist in lots of different formats, which are there, of course, I took further on, as I got older and, went to university and so on and so forth as well.
So there was very much a sense of arranging and being aware of different instrumentation and how the instruments worked, and not necessarily in your typical brass environment, but across the board with orchestra.
Yeah, absolutely.
You said jazz band, so you're not limiting yourself to the stereotypical Salvation Army brass band structure. You've got a lot of different things coming at you.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was, I think, really important for my kind of development as a musician. But one thing that was, I guess, key looking back now was understanding how the band stuff worked. I mean, I grew up in a small corps, and we had anything between 8 and 12 in the band on a fluctuating basis. And so I mentioned before, I would sit next to my dad in the band, but my dad would play his cornet from the score. And so I would watch him doing that and watch him jump in between the different lines on the score to play the important bits that were missing. And so kind of learning how that structure fits together was really interesting. And then being part of groups, I was encouraged. The music teacher at school, I was part of a kind of a jazz band, a swing band that met every week. And I was encouraged to, as part of my GCSE work many years ago, to compose a piece for that band to play. And knowing how I'd kind of interacted with the other musicians in that group, knowing how each instrument was used and was really important to that. And that was a real good opportunity. You know, when somebody gives you that kind of opportunity to have a go for a live group, that doesn't really matter how it goes. You want it to go really well, but they're just giving you the opportunity to kind of try your hand at something. That was important, and I enjoyed that.
So what was your process when you started, and how has it evolved over time? Are you still someone who's happy to get the score paper out and sit down and sketch out the notes, or do you kind of go, do you know what, I've got Sibelius, let that do the hard work, and then I can print out all the parts and tidy up? How does the process work for you over time?
I guess, yeah, I guess it's changed over time in a lot of ways, but the heart of it's still the same. It's still all about an idea, and you know, I would tend to have an idea of what I wanted to achieve with a piece of music before I would even go near, you know, a piece of paper or the piano or the computer. I do tend to use Sibelius more as a kind of a word processor equivalent.
Mm-hmm.
So I have the idea for what I'm trying to achieve, and then I use that to get it down into a way that other people can use.
Mm-hmm.
So rather than, I know that many composers use it as a compositional tool, and you know, sometimes I'll do that, but it tends mostly to be, this is a kind of just a method really of kind of getting the ideas down onto paper. I was brought up with a program called, what was it, Notator.
Oh,
Actually,
yes.
that's not entirely true. I had Notator Alpha, which was a cheaper version of Notator on my Atari, and you know, that was kind of a forerunner to Sibelius, really, and that was a good way of learning the process, learning the package. It was good. So I've been able to use things like that since I was, you know, quite young, and now I do find it really helpful. I don't have the most up-to-date version of Sibelius, but it does everything I need it to do, and
Yeah,
you know, rather than
graphics
shelling out even
programs
more.
that are that old.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I had a friend of mine, he said, God, he said, that's an old version. I said, it does what it says on the tin. I know how
Exactly.
to work it.
Yeah, and if I get a new one, it'll slow me down even further. Yeah.
Yeah, so I thoroughly appreciate that. It's something
Yeah.
I'm very much at home with, is using something that works for you.
Yeah.
So bearing that in mind, when you were doing the arranging and getting your ideas down and doing this composition and learning the art, and who are you, for you, are the names that are important, your early mentors and teachers and those people that help guide you in that process and continue to this day?
But lots of people are involved in that, and I think lots of people who probably wouldn't know either. And you know, one of the important things for anybody who's interested in this area is about the encouragement that you receive from other people, not necessarily the people who can tell you how to do it any better or any of that, but just the encouragement of, oh, I enjoyed that.
Yeah.
That there's few words at the end of a meeting or at the end of a concert or whatever it happens to be, you know, oh, I really enjoyed that, or thanks for that, you know, even if they don't enjoy it, but they say thank you, you know that they appreciate that some work's gone into creating it. So a lot of people, you know, are encouragement and kind of, you know, give you that push to do a little bit more. You know, my dad has been you're really helpful to me, you know, over the years, and he will always kind of listen to music and give me, you know, his thoughts on it, and you know, those kind of things.
Excuse me.
And I suppose in a different way, when I was at university, I studied music at university, and a very different kind of composition style at university to what I would use now, but a good grounding in how different styles work, and in about, I'm really interested in sound and in the combination of sounds rather than you know, just necessarily a kind of a tried and tested method. You know, I like to kind of experiment with the sounds that, you know, are created, and that was a good grounding in that at university. And I guess now, you know, I have I suppose a mentor in bandmaster Andrew Mackworth, who is Andrew and Stella have become very close friends of Lindsay, my wife, and I, and he's a real help in that, and
Yeah.
he's a very honest critic, which is really helpful. Yeah, it's good to kind of have somebody who will kind of listen to it and say, actually, you know, there's no point in what you've done there. Why have you done that? And explore those kind of things to make you think a little bit more. It's really easy to get into your own little bubble when you're kind of, you know, sat working away, and then you think, you know what, this is like, you know, I'm the new Beethoven. I've done something absolutely phenomenal here, and then you realize, no, actually, it's only because I've lived in that moment for the last however long. You know, you got to step back and think about the things that need to adapt.
So, yeah, it's interesting. So, I mean, it's a constant evolution. Are there, you know, are there any kind of particular sort of genres of music that you find very comfortable and very satisfying to write for, as opposed to someone saying, "I'd like a Gershwin type trombone solo for wind band in America," and you're, I don't. It's not really my field, but I'll have a crack at it. You know, is there anything that sort of comes comfortable to you that you know is a happy medium for you to sit down and write?
No, I think that, you know, it depends on what you're doing it for, really.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a difference between, excuse me, difference between a commissioned piece and something that I would just decide, you know, this is something I want to write, you know, I'll start now. And I guess it's a little bit like saying to an artist, here's a photograph of the view from my window, I'd like you to paint that. Would be a kind of a transcription type idea as a composer, as an arranger. Or you're saying to your artist, you know, I'd like a picture of a field with some cows in it. Well, that gives you a little bit more freedom. But I'd like a picture of a field with some cows in it, and it's for my great aunt Edna, and she's got a little bit of space in her bungalow for that on the wall. Then you start to know about your audience, and you start to know about something about the kind of size of force that you've got to play with. So it depends. The commission thing is really interesting, and that I quite enjoy doing that when somebody, you know, if, for example, the bandmaster at the choir will say to me, you know, can I have a piece of music that uses this tune and that tune? Yeah, great, no problem. We'll work on an idea for that. It's a different process, I guess, when I just sit down. And so at the moment, you know, I've kind of got a piece of music that I'm working on in my head, and it hasn't got anywhere near paper. It hasn't got anywhere near a computer yet, but I'm kind of trying to form the ideas, and I've got a few little things going round and round that I want to just, I don't know, percolate a little bit more before I actually start to kind of mess about with them.
Yeah. So what is your process for writing? You know, do you have a room where you go away and you switch off the radio and the TV, and, you know, you've got a mobile phone full of voice messages, you know, when you've been out walking the dogs and stuff?
Yeah.
You know, when you've got the commission come through and it's a trombone solo or a concert opener for St. Denis or whatever, what's the process for you first? You have to go sit down and look at the tune and, you know, play it on the piano? How does it start off for you?
I would, yeah. So if I was asked to do, you know, an arrangement of a particular piece, or a piece of music based on a particular song, I would probably go to the piano, play it through a couple of times just to make sure I got it in my head. But then I wouldn't do anything else with it for a few days. I would just think about it, and I would be, you know, playing the ideas through in my head, in the shower, in the car, you know, whatever I am, you know, with a few spare moments. I'd be playing with the ideas, and then I would come back, and I would maybe have made some. I probably, rather than voice memos, I don't tend to kind of make little recordings of myself to remind me of things, but I will write little text notes to myself saying, make it sound like bells, use the last two bars to, you know, I'll kind of, if I've got an idea that I think could work, I'll make a little note to myself, because I will forget. So it's useful to have that. I carry notebooks everywhere I go, and, you know, always writing little things down, maybe scribbling, you know, a couple of bars down, and then I'll come and I'll work it through with the piano. and that's when I would maybe start to put things, into Sibelius to kind of work it through like that.
How do you keep yourself original? Because we've got so much sort of nestled at us that you hear a piece of music and the family goes, "Why have you got Kellogg's cornflakes new advert jingle in there?"
Yes.
How do you try and keep it? You think, no, is that a copy of that cornflakes jingle or is that original? You don't
That's
want to
really
start
difficult.
ripping off other people. You want it to be yourself.
Yeah.
How do you try to keep that yourself sane when you're doing that?
Well, I guess that everybody, every composer is going to have, it's going to be a sum of everything that they've heard, aren't they? You kind of assimilate things and you bring things through. You don't kind of plagiarize, but at the same time, you want to try and find out what your voice is. And there are a few Salvation Army composers that you kind of, you hear a few bars of it and you can instantly say, that's that person, and that's really powerful. And when you've got to that stage, I think I think I'm kind of still in that position of playing with lots of different feels. I don't think even I could sit down and listen to my music and think, do you know what, that's Steve Gibson, that is. But I think that the working through those different ideas is important, and having, I don't know, it's really easy to kind of listen to other people's stuff and listen to it so often that you can then sit at the piano and come out with it and think, yeah, that's brilliant, and then you do realize, no, actually it is the cornflakes advert or whatever, and no, that's right, no, that's not mine, I can't use that. And but the idea of all of those things, and I think there's something to learn from every piece of music that you listen to. There's success in every piece of music. So jingles on television that are there and then kind of catch you in your head, and
This is what they're supposed to do, get the
absolutely right. Yeah, absolutely. And you'll be whistling the a mobile phone ring or something, all of those things. What makes that particular few bars or that particular song or whatever it is successful, and analyzing that for yourself to try and kind of say, well, what can I do that would have that connection. I mean, we've got some really really talented composers in the Salvation Army, and we are very fortunate for that. But people who can take an idea and work it through in so many different ways that you would never have thought possible, and really does bring a new meaning to a piece of music. And that's one of the real gifts of the Army, I think.
In the early days when you were doing your first stabs at composition and arranging, who were the guinea pigs that got the sheet music on the stands?
Well, my home corps band, I come from many years ago. I've been in the Northeast now for 25 years or more, I don't know. But in the early days, I grew up in a corps near Sheffield called Stocksbridge Corps, and the little band there would indulge me occasionally and place it through some things which were, when I look back, truly dreadful, but were all learning opportunities. Not highlights certainly along the way, but certainly indulged by the corps there. But lots of groups, the core groups have played things. I remember doing an arrangement of a piece of music, and the youth band in what was then the South Yorkshire division played it in a cathedral. We were out playing for a day, and they had a go at it, which was just it was a real highlight for me, hearing something played by a youth band, which there's varying qualities in youth bands, but it was a decent sounding band, played in a really nice environment. That was a real moment that kind of that kind of spurred me on a little, I think. Core bands, songsters, individuals who have asked for things. I was asked, quite a few years ago, to come up with new arrangements of songs that were used in kind of divisional events, big divisional events in the Northeast, and so that would be something kind of each year to work towards, and I enjoyed doing those. So that was good. I've been encouraged by a lot of people along the way for things like that, which is nice.
Yeah. Can you remember the first time you were asked to conduct? And I would say, have you been asked to? And if you have, can you remember the first time you've been asked to conduct a piece of your own music in an army band?
Yeah. I was asked. Yeah, I was asked to conduct a piece of mine in a congress that we had in where was it? I don't know. Anyway, it was a divisional congress, and the band had used this piece throughout the weekend, and then I was asked if I'd take it through, and that was a real honor, really. And I kind of shy away from things like that. I don't feel that I need to be given the baton to kind of take my piece. I quite enjoy it, but I don't feel that I need to have that. I quite enjoy seeing other people take it, and you get to a position with a piece of music where it stops being yours, really, because you've put all of that effort into getting it to that point, but then you give it to somebody else who then makes it theirs. I know there's a piece that a non-Salvation Army band played probably about a year ago now in a contest up here, and I went to hear them play it, and I was really surprised by the way that the conductor had taken a passage of the music, and it was so much better than I'd anticipated it because of his interpretation on that little bit of it. I thought, oh, that's really good. I wish I'd thought about putting it that way, but that's good. It's good that they take a life.
Cringe-worthy moments the other way, where you've sat in a thing and you've heard about, oh golly, they just haven't got it.
Too many, yeah, too many. There's a piece.
I'm sure that's not true.
I shan't say which group played it, but there's a piece of music that I thought was fairly decent, and a band rehearsed it, and the rehearsal went so badly of it that there was no way that piece would have ever made it out onto the stand of that band again. But I kind of came away a little disheartened and think, oh blimey, I thought this was good. I thought we were in a position. Had a different group play it, and it went completely differently. And so it wasn't a kind of a fault in the music. It wasn't a fault in the playing of it or anything like that. It was just on that one occasion where that group hadn't kind of wedded itself to it in the way that would have brought out a decent end product. But there's often those moments where you think, oh no, I thought that would have worked. And there's nothing worse than when you're in a rehearsal and with a piece of your own music, and suddenly you start hearing, did you mean that to be an F sharp? Yep, I probably did. I don't know. I'm not at this point, you get
Is
that
it printed
sometimes.
on the page? Yes.
So just play it as it's written, and we'll see if we need to make any changes later. Yeah.
And what are there any kind of light bulb moments in your own memory where you say that was a significant lesson that you learned in your compositional training and evolution in music making, where you learned something and you thought, do you know what, that's an important milestone in my life? Are there any moments like that spring to mind?
There are a few, yeah. I think that I listened to something, a documentary about Walt Disney and how they make films, and one of the things that they try to do in every Disney film that they make, every animation, is that they try to explore a new technique that they haven't used before.
Mm-hmm.
And so, for example, the film about Rapunzel, Tangled, one of the things that they felt that they weren't very good at doing was animating hair. And so animating this, enormous amount of hair on this character was one of the things that they worked towards. And that's something that I try to kind of, do myself in my music. And, each piece, I don't want to kind of get into any kind of, hackneyed habits of, letter A always does this, letter B always does this. Obviously there's form and structure and you follow, those where you need to. But I want to try and do new things. And I think um, listening to various pieces of music within the army has helped with that. And there's a few that kind of spring out straight away. So I think about Isaiah 40, Robert Redhead's, a big piece of music, and very meaningful for the army in lots of ways. That kind of first test piece and all of that kind of stuff, and the way that it starts off with the solo second baritone as an idea to kind of turn things on its head a little bit. Bill Himes has done that over and over again with his output. Really taken something that we know very well, and then just tweaked it and moved it forwards just that little bit. Some very clever musicians that we can listen to. From my point of view, I guess I do try to learn lessons each time. I suppose a personal lesson I've learned would be that although it's nice to have the validation of others when you compose music, you don't necessarily have to have that either. And so, if I've written a piece of music and I like that piece of music and it's valuable to me for whatever reason, and then I don't find anybody else who does agree with that, well, that has to be something that's fine with me, that I don't necessarily need that kind of external validation. That is quite a lesson to learn, that it is quite a personal thing, that sometimes it's not going to hit the mark with everybody, but that's okay. Everything, as I say, everything should be a learning experience. Everything should be something that moves you forwards, even if it's, I'm never going to write like that again, or I'm never going to do that, or I'll probably never take that out of the box again.
But of course, the things that you write that don't work may come in useful for a later piece, or an idea comes into. Hang on a minute, that motif, that I wrote something of that a while ago. Which piece of paper is it on?
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. And when I look at my my hard drive on the computer for Sibelius, you'll see that every piece of music has about 50 versions. So it's whatever, version 1, version 2, version 3, and that's so that I can continue to change things, but I can always go back and think, do you know what, that didn't work, I'll go back to how it was last week. Yeah.
Who are the heroes of Salvation Army music that you admire? I mean, people no longer with us, and people nowadays who are still writing and stuff. Who are the ones that appeal to you when the scores come through, or one comes out of the archive kind of thing? What names spring to mind as real legends in your view?
Well, I think there are lots of kind of legends along the way, and I think I probably am not unusual in picking out some of the big names. Eric Ball, for example. Eric Ball, I can't imagine that there'd be Salvation Army brass composer who hasn't been moved or inspired or kind of challenged by his music at some point. And phenomenal output from Eric Ball, and both inside and outside of the Salvation Army. Some amazing stuff there. So I would say, he's right up. Ray Steadman Allen, again, some phenomenal pieces of music, and such a lovely guy as well. Ray was I did some kind of project about Ray Steadman Allen, some kind of dissertation thing when I was at university, and that's when I came into contact with him, and from that point on, he would keep in regular contact with me about, encouraging and kind of moving forward, which was really lovely. But his music, I mean, The Holy War by Ray Steadman, if there's a piece of music that I wish I'd written myself, that would be it, The Holy War. It's tremendous. Such a good storyteller.
To write the Gibson equivalent, there's still time.
Yeah, absolutely right. Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe it's a challenge around the corner to note the notes together. You never know.
You never know. And it could still be in my head, just waiting to get onto Sibelius. Who knows? But lots of it. Kenneth Downey, Ken Downey, a tremendous composer, and Bill Himes, as mentioned before. Bill, who has just moved the genre forwards, constantly throughout his output. And I will mention him again, Andrew Macareth, as a composer and as an arranger. I don't think that there's a better arranger. Full stop. He's a tremendous musical mind, and there are some of his pieces of music which are kind of I think pastiche of other types of music. Often beat the originals from my point of view. But yeah, there's so many people that
individual arranger, I think, Andrew. He's got a certain style which you alluded to earlier. You can look at a composer and you can listen to someone and say, that's a so-and-so piece, that's a so-and-so piece. I've been privileged to meet him a couple of times, and his passion for music is really profound, and he's really not afraid to break the mold in order to try something new. And it seems to be a success, and he'll probably tell me he's got boxes full of stuff that have never seen the light of day. But
that's right.
Yeah. Outside of the brass band work, particularly the Salvation Army brass band work, I mean, as you say, you've had this university education and you jazz band, so you've not limited yourself or been limited to writing for the traditional Salvation Army brass band. But you are able to write for other outside orchestras, compositions, vocal groups, anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, I was a music teacher for a long time, and as a music teacher, you would be kind of constantly arranging music and writing scores for the groups that were in front of you, and so you could, sometimes you go from July to September, you may have got this whole rack of music for your ensembles which were based around a great brass section who all left in the summer. So now you've got to change it because actually you've only got 3 clarinets and they're really good, and so there's a lot of kind of learning that in that particular line of work. But yeah, I mean, I've written a number of pieces of music that be used in different ways. I wrote a piece of music for as a soundtrack for a student film quite a few years ago now. Bit of a kind of a horror type thing that was interesting. I do like to write choral music as well. I don't tend to do as much. I probably did more a few years ago. I was a songster leader, and I probably did more back then when I had the group to write for. But I think I've written for outside choirs and so on as well. I think it's just nice to not limit yourself and to not just have one single experience. And I don't put down anybody who does focus solely on the Salvation Army output, because the Army is a organization that really does kind of thrive on its music, and the mission is really supported by the music that we have and the musicians that a part of that. So I don't kind of put anybody down for that, but I think from my point of view, I do enjoy just working with others and whatever comes along, really.
Yeah, I think every composer has said to me that there can be a massive difference between when a piece is written and if it does get published, when it gets published, because you can have years when you write something down and then it gets sent in. Oh, we'll use that next year. Like, oh, that was written 25 years ago.
Absolutely.
I was, one of the delights I have when doing these interviews is going back into my personal collection and finding little YouTube clips, and people have sent me mobile phone recordings because they know, oh, here's a new piece by so-and-so, and oh, is that really? And I had 4 pieces come up by your pen. Now, one of them was Tell, which is your Unity series publication at the moment.
Yeah.
A really nice march, because it goes almost the old style where you've got, it's not just fiffle faffle, standard hymn tune, little fiffle faffle and a few fireworks. You've got a lot of things going on in there, a lot of bounce and a lot of sort of historical tunes in there. Very interesting to do in a Unity series march. But what's the story behind Tell? Because I don't think the school. I mean, the school notes just say who you are, but they don't sort of tell me, the story behind the story kind of thing.
Do you know what? I think that's probably because there wasn't much of a story behind it. I'm sure I was
Oh,
asked. Yeah, but I could. I wrote the piece of music because I wanted to compose something. I wanted to put something down on paper that I thought would work really, really well, and I could be really proud of that piece of music. And I did. I put that one together, and I did eventually. I don't think I ever. No, I don't think I had it performed at the time or anything like that. But I wrote the piece of music up, and when I felt it was ready, I sent it up to the music department at THU, and had the response around we'd like to keep this on file,
mm-hmm.
which is off. It's it is what it is, and then forgot about it. And it was, I think it was about 8 years later when I had a message back from them saying, we've decided we'd like to use this piece, and blah, blah, blah. Oh, really kind of strange that it just came out of the blue. Yeah, so it's an interesting little march, but I think, I wanted it to be something that would be sort of edifying, I guess, to play, because I think Unity series has really morphed over the years, from being something that was probably originally aimed at YP bands into something that's now much more aimed at smaller core bands and groups that come together, so small groups that kind of come together ad hoc. And so something that, provides a challenge and, is something a little bit different. I think it's important. There's some really good stuff in Unity series, I think.
Yeah, there's some good stuff. There's also some horrible stuff as well.
Yeah, well, I couldn't possibly
I wish I could go back in time and borrow the Doctor's TARDIS to remember the piece of music that the band put on their stand, and after playing it through, they went, "Burn it!" And I never made a note of what it. And I said to my parents, I said, I remember going to this big house many years ago where we were shown around the place, and it really made an impression. I said, but to tell you the truth, if I went around the same house again, I probably wouldn't be able to clock it was the same house. So I could play this piece of music through and go, that's interesting, and have no memory that I'll burn it. But it's very interesting unit, because you don't really need, the international staff band, size band to be able to play it. You just need sort of a focus group. And, it was always reminded me of a Sunday Night Selection in its use of tunes and stuff. You go from I want to tell, you stand up and shout, tell him in the east, and I stand amazed. And it forms in that very kind of link. It's almost like a jigsaw puzzle. It works well. It hangs together too much.
An extra bit to the story would be that the version I originally sent in had one final addition at the end. So I can't even remember what it was now, but there's an additional tune. So there were 3 playing against each other, all with the same theme in the last time. And the editorial department felt that was, just a step too far. And, I agree, that it became a little confused, but it was just, No, I see, I can tell you what you mean about the
theme called Tell.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
No, it was, it's a lovely piece of music. Now, you sent me through a couple of other pieces of your work that have been on YouTube, and I think Simple Prayers really took me off guard, because I've been tracking my brain to trying to think, because I recognised that one of the main themes in it, and I've been la-laing all afternoon trying to think, what are the lyrics? I still haven't done it. But it's a wonderful, it's a simple prayer, and it's not meant to be, avant-garde or a complicated, make the trombone players blow their brains out and you've only blow like red. It's a very kind of gentle setting, and it hangs together very well. But what was the genesis for Simple Prayers? And
That's
what are the tunes that are supposed to be included in it, so I can put my brain to rest?
right. Okay, let me think. So okay, the idea behind it is I started the piece quite a long time ago, and it's gone through a number of different iterations before it got to the version that you'll have heard. But the tune, which is around the old singing company song, "A Simple Prayer." Hello,
Mhm.
God, this is your friend again. Yeah,
Thank you.
and there you
And you
are.
should use that, I do remember. Yeah.
I'll
Sing
text you
company
the
song.
words. That's
Hello,
it.
God, this is your.
Yeah.
Yep.
So as a child, I remember singing this song with the singing company. I remember it for lots of reasons. One being that my cousin, who was in the singing company at the time, he would not be able to help himself but yawn throughout the whole thing. It's just one of those natural reactions to that song. But it was a beautiful song. And when our daughter was born, she's nearly 10 now. When she was born, um, I would sing that song to her,
Mhm.
so she won't grow up as a musician because she's had that sung at her over from my voice. But
Oh, yeah, little faith.
so yeah, she's learning like her mum. She's learning the French horn. She's doing very well with it. But so I would sing this song at bedtime to her for a long, long time, and so I kind of wanted to kind of work on that, work with that piece of music. As a little bit of a kind of a reminder of that. So it's an interesting, for me, it's an interesting grouping of pieces. Right at the beginning, there's a series of snapshots of little prayers that my kids would have sung in at school. So they go to a Catholic primary school, and so there's a couple of little um, kind of lunchtime prayers, end of day prayers, those kind of things that they would sing when they came home, that are mentioned in there. There's the Hello God. There's Thank You for the World So Sweet. Thank You for the Food We Eat. There's a childhood prayer. So around the table as a child, we would sing that as a grace in my family home. And then right at the end, it comes through to you've got me. I wasn't ready for this. A little star peeps o'er the hill.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the final bit is the children clasp their hands in prayer, for the love of God is everywhere, and that just kind of takes me on a full circle of songs that prayers. The idea of how we communicate to children, that
Mhm.
praying is actually really easy. It's not a
Yeah.
complicated thing. It's not something that we need to think too hard about. It's just a conversation. And so the idea of bringing all of those different pieces together, and then the end bit where the children clasp their hands in prayer, we used to sing that at Sunday school as the benediction every Sunday. And
Mhm.
I have recollections of sitting in the hall singing this and realizing that my dad had arrived to collect us, because you'd hear him start to put in some kind of bass part or something from the back of the hall, and you think, oh, dad's here. So the kind of how I guess we as dads, parents, how we communicate to children that that praying is just simple. It's part of everyday life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did. It was one of them really things, I, I think like you alluded to earlier, there are some pieces of music I can go, yeah, I'm going to yawn my head off because I've listened to it so many times. I thought, oh no, this is going to be divine communion. This is going to be a simple, vigil or something, with no disrespect to any of the authors.
No.
And I feel like I've heard this so many times, I've fallen asleep before I've actually listened to it. And we kind of, it's like our favourite march or our favourite hymn tune. We've sung it before, we've actually realised, oh, have we started yet?
Yes, that's right. Yeah, yeah.
We caught in a row, and it's kind of, we need that. Let's tweak it a bit. Let's just make our brains go, oh, hang on a minute, I hadn't thought of that. I mean, one of my favourite examples is Morgan Stavick done variations on a theme by Bramwell Coles, where he makes a prayer out of the world is needing us, Christ is leading us. Now, you would not have thought of that as a prayer.
No, that's
And
right.
I remember saying to some friends, I said, look, if I hadn't have heard it, I wouldn't have thought it. So I must have heard it somewhere. And it took me a long time to track down, why did I think of the world as needing us as a prayer? because it's just the total opposite. It just takes a little bit of a motif, twists it, and which leads me up to, I hope, was one of your pieces, because it's credited to you, but knowing my library gets disguised every now and again. I'll edit this out if it's Lift Up the Banner.
Oh, yes.
Yes. Now, well, I listened to I'd heard it before, and I knew it was a light-hearted piece, but I was really interested. It felt like I was listening to a Salvation Army band trying to march off against a TV show from the late 60s, early 70s. Da, 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 da. And then you've got Yellow Star, and, sneaking through in the middle. That's a pretty corking piece of work. I mean, I think most people who watch this will know I do love a nice fireworky opener piece of music, which is why I love the works of Sam Creamer and Stephen Gibson and Martin Cordner. And I don't think I've ever heard it live, but I came across it by really funky and original. And it's like you're taking two really opposing ideas, the funk and the vibrancy of those classic theme tunes that we grew up, Hawaii 5-0, the Rockers was, and you're shoving a Salvation Army tune right at them.
Yeah.
Interesting mix, I must say.
I guess it was kind of lift up the banner was it was a kind of a nod towards the Copacabana. And I remember listening to a wind band play Barry Manilow's Copacabana in a concert. And as I was listening to it, I was thinking, lift up the banner would go really well in this kind of so that's where I went. That's where I went. It was very, very different from anything else.
Yeah, it works. It's a very inventive piece because you're sort of talking polar opposites. I mean, you could play Lift Up the Banner against Shout Aloud Salvation or some kind of army tune, and you think, oh yes, the colours will, we'll take that flag song and that flag song, and we'll make a medley because they're sort of harmonious and about the same subject.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like we're opposite ends of the football field in America, and it really works well. I hope it gets to see publication one day, because I think it would give the percussionists a nightmare just to start off with. But
it's an interesting piece. I mean, I know that Sazway, the Salvation Army Symphonic Wind Ensemble, they've used it a few times, it's quite.
Funny where I got it from, to be honest.
Yeah, probably. They are, but it's what you were saying before about sometimes you do just need to have a little bit of a jolt into thinking about something in a different way, and it's become very probably unfashionable to use those kind of songs in meetings and so on. We don't tend to sing about the flag. We don't tend to do those kind of things anymore. And I'm not suggesting that that's where we should go back. But what I'm suggesting is that there's some value in understanding what we are and what we're about and what the things around us mean. That's just a way of kind of trying to bring it back into people's view, really.
Yeah, but I think anyone who needs to want to hear Yellow Star in red and blue in a different way, I think they'll be pleasantly surprised by that. And if they're not pleasantly surprised, they're not listening to it right. And the other, as I say, some of these things I know because I've seen they come from your email and stuff. Light Force, another one of yours?
Oh yes, yes.
I'd only had a chance to listen to it a couple of times this afternoon between family engagements, but I remember it being a very inventive piece of music. I can't remember the life of me, but the tune at the end I wanted to remember, so I've got to ask her about that, and it's completely gone out of my brain because I didn't write it down. But Light Force, it almost feels like I should be in Star Wars and have kind of the same use the Force. I mean, I know got nothing to do with that, but
the Light Force is something that I understand the Army are going to publish.
Ooh,
but probably it won't. It's not the version that you have heard, because that wasn't the version I sent to them. I'd been asked to compose something for a kind of a massed YP band event that took place at Bedlington, where I'm a soldier, and so I came up with this piece of music, and then after hearing it, it was quite a straightforward march at that point, and then after hearing it, I decided how I wanted to then take it forward a little bit more, and so there is this kind of Star Warsy feel, I suppose, this star feel, and
had that movie motif feel running through it.
Yeah, and you know, I did a little search on the music index because I could not believe that in 150 something years of the Salvation Army, nobody had used that title. And so, because I thought Light Force, that sounds like something we would use.
Well,
that sounds like something
with PLC for Fire in the Blood.
Yeah, I mean, exactly.
Blood and fire flag, blood and fire. Yes. You know, we won't let the blood and fire touch the ground, but to invert fire in the blood, ever.
So it got that title, and I'm quite pleased with that. It's an interesting piece. I'm trying to think how it finishes. I can't really remember. It's a while. Just with you asking about the final piece in it, the final song in it. But,
I mean, some of these things, it's like when I was listening to Simple Prayers, I knew the tune, and it's like one of these things that you have to go away and let your brain rest, and then that's what the song is called. I know it so well, but I can't think of it. So, has this lockdown meant that composition and arranging has had to take a back seat because family commitments and work commitments have just had to be reorganised? Or has it gone the opposite way?
No, it has, unfortunately. And, I, right at the start of lockdown, a couple of people from the Corps who are always really encouraging of me sent me a message to say, hope you're going to make sure that you use some time for composing. Unfortunately, I haven't done anything during lockdown compositionally at all. I'm hopefully going to start something this week. As I say, I've got one of those things whirring around at the moment. I've got the ending. I haven't got how we get there yet. I've got the end of it. But it's been a difficult little while. In my professional life, I'm a deputy head teacher in a high school, and part of my role is around looking after the pastoral nature of the school and supporting vulnerable children and those who've got a difficult home life. And so my time has been taken up with making sure that all of those provisions are in place and that those children are supported and the families are supported, and trying to kind of work with my team who are all working from home and everything else. And then on top of that, obviously, we've got Lindsay's a teacher as well. She's been working from home with me and the two children. We've got Henry is 6, nearly 7, and Evie is 9, nearly 10. So they've been working from home. So in the nerve center where I am now, in our little study, we've got a desk that Lindsay and I share, and we've just been basically sat here for the last 4 months at computers, and we've got a desk for each of the kids behind me, and they've just kind of had to be head down and getting on with their work and making the best of it. It's not been an awful time.
Yeah, I thought it was a music case behind you. I think it's actually a telescope, isn't it?
That's a telescope behind me.
My cousin had a similar light. I thought it was a guitar case to begin with.
Yes. No, all the music cases are in the corner covered in dust. Well, my corner is the kids have done their practice. I haven't done mine.
I'll give you 3 final questions because our time is rapidly running out. Before I pray for you, but I would like to ask 3 questions, 2 which are interlinked and 1 is completely separate. First question, part 1: favorite Salvation Army songbook song at the moment?
Oh goodness.
I know it can change from day to day, but
it does. But I will say my favorite song has always been "To God Be the Glory," and that's every songbook I've had. You would find they're up on the shelf, kind of a series of them. The bookmark, the bookmark will always be in that page, and I always put it to that page the first thing I do. I
Are
don't
you
know
a
why.
traditionalist
I
or?
think I'm more of a traditionalist than I realized before I started saying that. Yeah, I am, and I, my kind of experience of church music in general is far more kind of traditional. Um, I don't kind of I enjoy the new music that comes in, and I enjoy using that. But I guess the kind of the old hymns are the things that would speak to me the most.
Yeah.
Dear Lord and Father of Mankind would be the second, I guess.
The reason I ask is that although I love the Chris Mallett version, it's something I just adore singing. I've said before, and it will be said again, that I've had conversations with Christians from other denominations where I'll mention a hymn tune and they'll go, "Oh, I don't think I've ever sung that tune to that song. Yes, it goes.
Yes.
We normally sing so and so." I'm like, "Do you?" As if you go to
Yeah.
the Salvation Army, it would be alien to sing that.
Yeah.
So when I think "To God Be the
That's
Glory," I
right.
thought, well, I know about 4 different versions of that song.
Yeah. Well,
just
I
wanted to-
remember. Yeah. No. I mean, I do like the Chris Mallett. I remember inviting a few years ago, inviting some church-going colleagues who I work with to a Saturday night event at the army, and they were just completely lost. They had no idea of any of the songs that we used,
Yeah.
and she said to me afterwards that we saw that the last one was "To God Be the Glory," and we thought we knew that, and then the band started up and we got no idea again. So yeah, I think I do like the kind of the original tune. I enjoy singing the Chris Mallett version, and that's good fun.
Yeah.
But these things get a life outside of the army as well. A friend of mine who's a chaplain in the Church of England, she says that she's already decided she wants "I'll Go in the Strength" at her funeral.
Mm-hmm.
It's really interesting how things kind of do take on that life outside.
Yeah. I think it's because I've had conversations and been witness to conversations where people from church, but particularly the Church of England and I think the United Reform have come in and they've go, "Why have you kept that a secret? If we'd have had that 20 years ago, the church would have exploded." The notation of half of the Gowans and Larson songs completely alien some people, and yet who is it tells me what to do and helps me to obey?
Mm-hmm.
I don't like to use the word contemporary because it kind of links it into anything written in the last 2 years, but non-Salvation Army songbook Christian song, do you have a particular one that you have an affinity with? Irrespective of the fact it might now be in the 2015 edition?
It probably is, yeah. There is a new song in my heart. I think
Yeah. When I
what
came
I'm
down
talking
and
about.
rescued me, yeah.
Yeah,
There
and
is a new song in, yeah.
that's the one. Yeah, beautiful. And that's probably one of my favourites of a more recent nature.
Yeah. I think Paul
I'm
Sharma
sounding really old when I
Unity
say that.
arrangement. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
it was a Unity series. It was lovely to be able to play it and to bring some of these tunes into army use.
Mm-hmm.
You do something army use. It sounds so cliche, that doesn't it?
Mm.
Do you have a favourite scripture quote? Group of verses.
Yeah, I guess. I suppose the scripture that stays closest to the forefront of my mind most of the time is Isaiah 26 verse 3. You will keep in perfect peace he who's steadfast in you because he trusts in you, and that's important to me for a lot of reasons. Growing up, it was not quite that text, but the text that was over the platform of the hall
Oh, you had a
that I grew
platform
up in.
text, did you?
Yeah, we had a
Oh, they're
platform text.
rare.
That was a "Thou wilt keep in perfect peace."
It used to be very, very popular, but nowadays, for some reason, no.
But yeah, so and because it's something that I've found to be a truth in life, and so has stayed very close to me.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to bring this session to a close because we both need to get on. But I do sincerely want to thank you for agreeing to take part and just to sit down and talk music, mentors, compositional skills, all these other younger composers. That's what Steve Gibson does. I know I'm doing it right. And Oh, is that what you done wrong? Glad I'm not the only one.
That's right.
It seems to be a workshop in composer tips and tricks. So we thank you for being good enough to share your tips and tricks and your thinking and
Thank you.
motivation, and for being a part of this collection. And thank you for giving up your time today to just sit down and talk Salvation Army music and your outside interests and stuff. It's been a real blessing to hear the music and hear the stories and hear the fun. And I think sometimes that what picks a piece up, to know that there's an original story that meant something. It wasn't just, cornflake packet on the bus on the way to work. There's a story behind each piece, as Bill Himes famously said. But we thank you very much indeed for your time. And I will take this opportunity, as I always do, to finish by praying for you. As you wish, stand up, sit down, jump around, whatever takes your comfort. But yes, I will now pray with you to finish off this time together. Heavenly Father, a blessing as always to talk the music of the Salvation Army, that you have raised us up scripturally to blend the message harmoniously. And we thank you, Lord, that so many people have accepted that realization that making music and composing music for the use of glory to you has been done, Lord. And I thank you for Steve, his work over the years, for the people that encouraged him, inspired him, helped him, guided him, and continue to nurture him to this day, Lord. I pray for him and his family at this time. I pray for the school work and his colleagues, that it's really sort of a tornado effect. We don't know where we're going and what's happening, but I thank you, Lord, that he knows you, Lord, and he is very much aware that you are right there at the center of his life. And I just thank you for his compositions. I thank you for his musical work. I thank you for the love that flows through them, trying to just bring the fun love of Jesus Christ in. When it needs to be serious, it's there. When it needs to be fun, it's there. We sometimes feel, Lord, that we forget you had a laugh, you have a joke, you have a sense of humor. Anyone who invented a giraffe has to have a sense of humor in my book. But we thank you, Lord, for that ability, Lord. And I thank you, Lord, that he is willing to try different things. He's not willing to sit on his laurel and just do a hymn tune arrangement or a solo, but he's willing to try different things for the kingdom, Lord, and to learn from them and to benefit from them. So we thank you for that benefit. We thank you for that experience. We thank you for the tips and the tricks and the techniques that he has learnt that make him that more mature composer, arranger, player, comrade, mentor, friend, person on the end of an email, person on the end of a phone, person at the end of a text message. We thank you for all that, Lord. And I just pray your blessing upon him and his family now, Lord, as they continue to strive to serve you and to cope in this very weird situation we find ourselves. Thank you, Lord, for all that you have done and all that you are going to do with Steve and his family now. Amen.
Amen. Thank you.